Today, let's walk through how you use a satin stitch foot and set your machine up. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are doing another presser foot series, and this is on a satin stitch foot. Now, a satin stitch foot is a clear presser foot. As you can see, here is the version I have. It has some grooves on the bottom. As you can see, it's very thin, very lightweight because it is just that clear plastic, and this is to allow you to be able to see decorative stitches better through it. So this is used for satin stitches or decorative stitches, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, one thing I was confused about was how this differed from an open toe embroidery foot, which we talked about a little bit in another video. And as you can see, they both have those grooves on the bottom. They both have that spot for the stitch to move through, but I did notice the groove on the open toe embroidery foot smaller than the satin stitch foot. It looks like it's a matter of personal preference, especially if you don't want to have both of these presser feet, so it's really more up to you. I will say that compared to a regular presser foot, the satin stitch foot is smaller, and then of course there's no grooves on the bottom of your regular presser foot, so this foot is specifically made for that decorative stitch. Now, to prepare our fabric for this decorative stitch, you're going to want to have some sort of patch, almost is the best way to use this. So I added some interfacing to the back of some cotton. Now, one thing I did not do that I should have is added some sort of interfacing or stabilizer to the back of the piece of fabric that I'm going to be adding these onto. You'll see later why that was such a big important thing, but if you're actually going to be doing a satin stitch, be sure to add stabilizer to both the fabric you are attaching onto your other fabric and the background fabric too. So to attach this presser foot, this is very simple. It just clips into your machine. So here I'm just going to be using that little button on the back, and it just snaps in. And then of course you're going to want to make sure that the needle is lined up. Now, to do a satin stitch, sometimes machines come with them already. Most of the time, as you can see on the bottom of mine, I do have some different satin stitches, but we're just going to be using a zigzag stitch to start off. So it's going to be a satin stitch is a very narrow zigzag stitch, so like where they're all kind of clumped together. So you can see at the bottom that I have different types of satin stitches, and we can test one of these out a little bit later as well, but I'm just going to be doing that zigzag stitch, so number 4, and then I'm going to be decreasing my width to 3 and then decreasing the length as well. So this is just going to give us a very narrow stitch that you'll see like all kind of bunched together. So now that my needle is set up, this is going to be going back and forth doing that zigzag stitch. I have my fabric here and I have the needle set up so that it is on the outside of that white piece of material. So you want the needle to be going, it's on mine, it'd go in blue first and then go back to white. So you can see that we now have the zigzag stitch going, so our nice tight satin stitch. And then of course when you go faster, you can see that this is what it looks like. So it gives you that really fun patch looking effect because those stitches are so close together. And of course there's different ways you could do this. You can make it bigger or smaller. The back is still looking good for this one, but overall you're going to continue on with the stitch to then attach this entire patch to your fabric, and this presser foot will allow you to easily see where you're going because it is clear. I will say that especially around the curves, you have to really take your time, so you're going to be lifting up that presser foot just to slightly turn it, and when you're doing those curves, you want the needle to be on the outside of whatever the patch is. I will include a link to a blog post that really went into this I thought was incredibly helpful, but it sounds like part of this also just takes a lot of time and practice to really allow yourself to have the best chance of working on those curves or any spots where you'd have to kind of move the needle around while you're sewing. So here's what my first attempt looks like with the presser foot. I think it actually turned out really well. The curved portions look nice too, and I will say this presser foot did help me see where I was going a lot better since it was clear. I do think the open toe embroidery foot probably would have worked just as well for this, but either way, both seem to work for the satin stitch. Now I'm going to do one other since I do have one other little patch I can test out, and for this I'm going to be using the satin stitch that came with my sewing machine, so one of those decorative ones. What I immediately noticed with this one was that my fabric was sort of tunneling itself underneath, which is why when you are actually using the stitch, you should always have some sort of stabilizer on the back. But even with this, I found that the stitch was working as it should. So this one's getting smaller and bigger to create that satin stitch, so more of a decorative effect. I was also able to see how the machine would work with this. I think if you have a machine that can do these computerized stitches, it's important to see how they work and to better understand them. So I would highly recommend you play around with the different stitches on your sewing machine, especially if you are interested in finding out more about how it works. But as you can see here, I did just kind of keep going around this little patch to get it in place. Overall, I didn't find it too bad, even with that little issue with not having the stabilizer on the back, and I will definitely say that having this clear portion at the front made it so much easier to see where I was going. So as you can see here that this patch is sewn on, definitely if I'd had the stabilizer, this would have looked a lot better and be smoother. The back, you can definitely also see where that tunneling occurred, but that's an easy fix for next time since I know what I'm doing a little bit better now. Overall, I found that this presser foot was very easy to use. I think if you're somebody who is going to be putting little patches like this on your clothes or pillows or bags, that this could be a fantastic investment for you to have, just because it's a lot easier to see where you're going. But I will say that if you already have an open toe embroidery foot, I don't think you need to get like a second foot on top of it. Let me know if you've used one of these before, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.